There's nothing worse than getting your bike nicked. It's a sinking feeling I wouldn't wish on anyone. And if it's happened to you, I'm sure you'll never want it to happen again. We here at GCN have plenty of experience of locking our bikes up. But we've also had a chat with the team at Sunday's Insurance, who provide cycling insurance for cyclists across the globe. And they've shared with us their extensive experience to help you lock your bike up properly. So here are some tips from the pros. The first thing to consider is your lock. Is it up to the job? This one is a D-lock, but you can also get an alarm D-lock, a cable link and chain lock. But the main thing to consider, according to Sundays, is that you get a lock strong enough to withstand an attempted theft. Brands all have their own way of rating different locks, but here in the UK there is an independent company called Sold Secure who assesses and rates the security of different security products, including bike locks. Their website is definitely worth checking out, even if you're not from the UK, because you can look up different locks and check their rating for free before you buy. Most insurers will have specifics about what type of lock you need relative to the value of your bike, and as a general rule of thumb, the more expensive your bike, the more secure lock you will need. So if your bike's worth more than £1,000 sterling here in the UK, then you should use a Sold Secure gold rated lock. If it's less than £1,000, you should use a Sold Secure silver rated lock. And in both of those circumstances, Sundays say they'd be happy to insure your bike in case of theft, as long as it's locked correctly, which I'll come on to in a bit. But just to point out, remember to keep receipts of any locks you've bought and also take photos if your bike is nicked as proof that your lock's been broken. Best practice in terms of how to lock your bike up, make sure you use your lock and attach your bike to an immovable object like a ground anchor or a bike rack, making sure that lock passes through the triangle and also the rear wheel of your bike, and obviously whatever you're locking it to. Then use a cable to attach it through both wheels, making sure no one can simply undo your wheels and walk off with them. And also make sure that whatever you're attaching it to can't be easily dismantled. Sundays say they've had plenty of claims where bike racks have simply been unscrewed and a thief has then carried the bike off. One thing to remember when you are locking your bike up is if you buy a D-lock like this and it comes with a cable, the cable isn't necessarily rated to the same standard as your D-lock. So always lock it up with the rated lock that you've bought. Make sure that's through the rear triangle and the rear wheel and the bike rack. Don't just lock up your cable with the D-lock to your bike rack. It's sad to say, but you should lock your bike up if you're going to be more than 5 meters away from it or if it's going to be out of your line of sight. If it's going to be close by to you, then you should consider slowing a thief down. Any opportunists out there will take advantage. Maybe use your helmet straps to lock your bike to a little bollard if you're going to be sitting next to it. I know it's sad to say, but these things happen. My teammate got his bike nicked just as he was walking into a cafe and it was gone for good. If you want to beef up your security a little bit more, a light lock like this, which you can then attach to something, just slows a thief down. It's not going to stop someone cutting through it, but it's going to slow them down. You're going to take 5 or 10 minutes to get through that and then run off with your bike. Also, don't just lock your bike to itself. You want to lock it to something, another removable object. Sundays say they've had claims where people have literally just lifted up a locked bike and run off with it. When storing your bikes at home, don't think they'll be safe if left in any sort of property. If your bike will be stored in your garage or inside your house, then the doors will need to be locked with a minimum of a 5-lever mortise lock, a CEN Grade 3 closed shackle padlock, or a Chubb deadlock. So check the spec of your home before you rest easy. If you have a garage, consider getting something like a garage blocker as an additional security measure. And if you are unsure whether the specs of your house meet your insurer's requirements, get in touch with them, ask them. Sundays say they'd be happy to answer any questions you may have. If you're storing your bike in a metal shed, make sure that shed is permanently fixed to a concrete base and locked up using a 3-point locking system. If you don't have a shed or you're storing your bike in a common area or perhaps outside, Sundays say then the bike needs to be locked to a Sold Secure gold rated ground anchor, something like this, which is fitted to the floor, to concrete floor and fixed with tamper-proof bolts. Once that's fitted on the floor, it's not going anywhere lock your bike to it in the method we've described in this video. If you store your bikes in a wooden shed, Sundays say they won't insure your bikes inside because the wood is just too easy to rip apart and get into. So what you have to do is lock them up to an anchor inside the shed to make them insurable. You need to use something like this. This is a shed shackle from a brand called Pragmasis. It's essentially fixed to the wall of your shed with tamper-proof bolts, so once it's in place, it's not going anywhere. And then you lock your bike up to that point there in the method described. It also strengthens your shed wall, and if thieves are going to get in there and try and take your bike and rip it apart, they're going to need to take a whole chunk of wall with them, which is why it is such a good deterrent against theft. On the topic of keeping your bike at home, many of you will have a home and contents insurance policy, but it is worth checking your policy wording on whether this extends to covering your bike or if it needs to be added as an extra. It's also worth bearing in mind that home and contents insurance does what it says. It covers items at home. So if you are out and about with your bike and it's stolen, more than likely that isn't covered. Some home insurance providers will provide coverage for this, but more than likely that will be capped at quite a low value. Taking out cover with a specific insurer like Sundays will allow you to cover your bike away from home, but also potentially cover yourself from accidental damage from the likes of crashes. Of course, you do pay for this, but that is the balance you need to think of when taking out insurance, and only you know what's right for your circumstances. Traveling with your bike, perhaps an overnight stay in a hotel on the way to a race or an event, you're going to need to take it out of your car, at least take it into your accommodation. Sundays say they won't cover your bike if it's left in your car overnight. And having woken up at race hotels to whole fleets of bikes being stolen from pretty beefy team trucks, I'd agree. So if you are planning a trip, don't leave your bike in or on your car overnight because you can't rely on it being there in the morning. If you are using a bike rack or you're leaving your bike in your car during the day when the risk is lower, Sundays say they will actually insure you as long as it's locked to an immovable object within the car. That's something like a child ISOFIX point or specific fixing points, which you can find out in your vehicle's manual. Also, make sure the bike is locked to the rack using the bike rack mechanism. Also, make sure the bike isn't visible from the outside if you're leaving it in your vehicle during the daytime. If you're commuting to work, consider getting yourself a heavy-duty lock and leaving it at your place of work. That way you don't have to carry it to and from work every single day. Leave it at your bike rack, lock your bike up with it. It's safe for the day. If you're moving about town all the time, perhaps consider a lighter, more wearable lock that's suitable for everyday use, so that you're not going to leave your bike in for longer periods. But remember, if you are leaving your bike in risky areas that have a greater likelihood of robberies, double up on the locks, get a diamond standard from Sole Secure rated lock. That way you're not risking a theft. Also at home, lights, security cameras, alarms, all are the sort of thing that are going to deter a thief and make their job really difficult, which is what you want to do. As mentioned before, we've worked with Sundays Insurance, who provided the information we've shared with you in this video, and it's been really enlightening. Big thanks to Sundays because I personally learnt a whole heap. They offer cyclist insurance in the UK, USA, Australia and New Zealand, so be sure to check them out if you've got a minute. You can find a link in the description below. Let us know though in the comments if you've got any tips we may have missed specifically to your region. Really interested to hear your thoughts, and if you did find this useful, please give it a big thumbs up, and of course thank you for watching. I'll see you on the next video. First off, I've got to find the key to the lock. May have lost it. Don't do that. That's another tip. Stuck in the rain now, I'm going to be walking home.